This is a horror story about a woman who moves into an apartment with strange occurrences. I'll translate it paragraph by paragraph, maintaining the same tone and style of the original. #The night in apartment 407. On the night Emma Blake moved into apartment 407, the silence of the building seemed almost palpable. At 32, recently divorced and determined to start over, she chose the Blackwood Building for its old-world charm and affordable price. What the advertisements failed to mention was the unsettling feeling of being watched that permeated every room. While unpacking her boxes, Emma noticed a pattern of knocks on the wall. 3 short taps, a pause, 2 long taps. Initially, she ignored them, until she realized the rhythm repeated precisely every 47 minutes. That first night, exhausted from the move, she fell asleep with headphones on, trying to drown out what she assumed was just an old pipe. But it wasn't. The next morning, Emma encountered a man in the hallway. Tall, with graying temples and intensely blue eyes, he introduced himself as David Mercer, her neighbor from apartment 408. "Welcome to Blackwood," he said, extending his hand. "I heard you moving around last night. Hope you're enjoying the place." Something in the way David emphasized the word "heard" made Emma hesitate before shaking his hand. His fingers were ice-cold, despite the stifling heat of the hallway. "Have you lived here long?" Emma asked. "Long enough to know all the building's secrets," he replied, with a smile that didn't reach his eyes. "If you need anything, just knock on my door. I'm always listening." When Emma entered her apartment, she noticed something she hadn't seen before: deep scratches on the inside of the door, as if someone had desperately tried to get out. 3 days later, Emma began to notice other patterns. The tap water that ran for exactly 12 seconds at 3:28 a.m. The smell of cigarettes that appeared suddenly, even with all windows closed. And always unfailingly, the knocks on the wall. It was on the 4th night that Emma decided to trace the knocks to their source. Armed only with her cell phone as a flashlight, she pressed her ear against different sections of the wall. The knocking seemed to come from within, not from the neighboring apartment, but from inside the wall itself. That same night, Emma received her first letter slid under her door. "Can you hear them too? Don't answer the knocks. Never answer." The letter wasn't signed, but Emma recognized the elegant slanted handwriting she had seen on the bulletin board in the lobby, signed by the building superintendent. Detective Michael Reyes was familiar with the Blackwood Building. In his 15 years on the police force, he had responded to 7 different calls from that address, all involving apartment 407. The most recent had been just 6 months ago. The previous tenant, Caroline Weber, reported similar disturbances before abruptly disappearing, leaving behind all her belongings. The case was filed away when her family claimed she had returned to her hometown, but Reyes never fully believed it. Now, sitting at his desk covered with old files, the detective examined a pattern that no one else had connected. At intervals of approximately 10 years, tenants of 407 disappeared without a trace. And there was always a mention of knocking on walls in the reports. When the phone rang that afternoon, something told him the cycle was beginning again. Emma hadn't planned to seek the police so soon. But after finding old photographs hidden behind the bathroom mirror, all showing women alone, with the same expression of dread, she knew she needed help. Detective Reyes received her with an expression that mixed concern and an almost feverish curiosity. "Ms. Blake, you mentioned knocking on the walls. Could you describe the exact pattern?" Emma tapped on the desk, demonstrating. 3 short taps, pause, 2 long ones. Reyes's face paled. "It's Morse code," he said. "It means SD." Previous tenants reported the same. "What does SD mean?" "Could be many things. Save them. Stop this. Or perhaps." "Perhaps what?" Emma pressed. "Still trapped," Reyes whispered. "Still trapped." As she left the police station, Emma didn't notice David watching her from across the street, nor the way he meticulously noted the time of her visit in a small, well-worn black notebook. The Blackwood superintendent, Mr. Peterson, was a small, nervous man with eyes that never settled on a single point. When Emma confronted him about the anonymous letter, he initially denied any knowledge. "I don't know what you're talking about, Ms. Blake. Perhaps you should look for another place to live if you're uncomfortable here." But Emma persisted, showing him the photographs. The superintendent's reaction was immediate, genuine fear that he tried to disguise with a nervous laugh. "Old stories," he muttered. "This building is almost 80 years old, you know? The walls are thin. People hear things." "What things?" Looking nervously over his shoulder, Peterson finally confessed. Before it was a residential building, Blackwood was a private psychiatric clinic. Apartments 407 and 408 formed a single room. 4 experimental treatments. They say not all patients were transferred when the place closed. When Emma returned to her apartment that night, the knocking had stopped completely. The silence now seemed even more threatening. Detective Reyes shouldn't have been investigating the case officially. His captain had been clear: without concrete evidence of a crime, there was no case. But something about Emma Blake and apartment 407 consumed him. Searching through municipal archives, Reyes discovered that Blackwood's original floor plan showed that 407 and 408 did indeed form a single unit, separated during the 1967 renovation. More disturbing still, he found reports from 1965 about unauthorized experiments conducted by Dr. Alexander Mercer, whose descriptions included communication with patients through Morse code through the walls. The surname Mercer made Reyes's blood run cold. He picked up the phone to call Emma when her call came through first. "There's something inside the wall," her voice trembled. "I heard, not just knocking. I heard someone breathing." "Get out of there now," Reyes ordered. "Don't tell anyone where you're going. Meet me in 20 minutes at the corner cafe." Emma hung up, but something in her tone told Reyes she had no intention of leaving. She would investigate first. While waiting for Reyes, Emma made an impulsive decision. If the answers lay between apartments 407 and 408, perhaps David Mercer knew more than he revealed. Watching him leave the building, Emma used the master key she had borrowed from the distracted superintendent. Apartment 408 was a mirror image of hers, but decorated as a shrine to the past. Antique furniture, no modern technology, and walls covered with black and white photographs. In many of them, a man identical to David appeared, but the dates on the photos went back to 1960. On an immaculately organized desk, Emma found a stack of diaries. Opening the most recent one, she read, "New tenant in 407 today. She has the same look in her eyes, curious, independent. Will she last longer than the last one? Father always said the treatment only works with the receptive ones. I need to prepare everything. It's almost time again." Emma frantically flipped through the earlier pages, finding entries about Caroline Weber and other women. All mentioned the treatment and continuing father's work. The last page contained only one line. She found the photos. "I need to act tonight." The sound of the apartment door opening made Emma freeze. "You shouldn't be here, Emma." David stood in the doorway, his calm expression contradicting the threat in his words. In his hand, a syringe gleamed under the dim light. "Who are you really?" Emma asked, slowly backing toward the wall that separated the apartments. "I am the guardian," he replied, advancing. "My father began the work here. He discovered that certain minds are receptive to interdimensional communication when properly prepared." Emma touched the wall behind her and felt something impossible. The wall was warm and seemed to pulse beneath her fingers. "The other women. Volunteers for the advancement of science," David smiled. "Some adapted well to the space between the walls. Others didn't. But all continue to contribute, in a way." When David advanced, Emma struck the wall with all her strength, feeling it give way much more easily than it should have. The plaster cracked, revealing not the expected structure, but a dark and impossibly deep space. And from the space, hands, dozens of them, extended outward. David's scream when the hands grabbed him echoed throughout the entire building. When Detective Reyes finally broke down the door to apartment 408, he found only Emma, sitting on the floor, staring at an intact wall. "Where is David Mercer?" he asked, gun in hand. "He's gone," Emma replied simply. "They took him." A complete search of the building revealed no sign of David. His apartment was empty of any evidence of the diaries or photographs Emma described. The superintendent denied knowing any tenant named David Mercer, and the building record showed no recent occupant in 408. Without proof and with an impossible story to believe, the case was filed away. Emma moved out 2 weeks later, refusing to say where she was going. Detective Reyes visited apartment 407 one last time before it was rented again. Pressing his ear against the wall, he heard only silence. But as he was leaving, a series of knocks began, 3 short, a pause, 2 long, followed by a new pattern that he immediately recognized. In Morse code, the knock spelled out, EMMAWILLRETURN. Reyes never set foot in the Blackwood Building again. But he kept an active file on the case, waiting for the day when a new tenant would report the knocking in the walls. In the depths of night, in the now empty apartment, the knocking continues its steady rhythm, an endless conversation between those trapped between worlds, awaiting the next receptive listener.